Hello everyone. Let's discuss about anatomy of JSP today. This is Nethrasri, assistant professor from CSE. See, we have seen about JSP life cycle. What is JSP? What are various phases that undergoes in the life cycle of JSP? So, what are all the methods that the life cycle goes on? All these things we have seen earlier. Now, let us discuss about anatomy of JSP. Basically, when you say anatomy of JSP, it means that it determines various components in a JSP page. It determines various components of JSP. So, what are various components of JSP? That is, there are two main components. One is template text, and the other one is JSP elements. So when you say a template text, see if you can remember your JSP program, besides the JSP code, you can write many other code, many other language code within the same program. Inside that, you can have your JSP code. And if you can remember, JSP code is written in angular bracket followed by percentile symbol and some code and then percentile symbol, close the angular bracket. This is what is your JSP code, and these are the tags within which you will write your JSP code. Besides this, there is some more code also can be written, that in terms of HTML or XML or JavaScript, whatever it is. Okay, so when you have besides that code of JSP, if you have some other code that in some other language, in some other text, that is said to be a template text. And if you have something written in between the angular brackets, opening and closing, and then percentile symbol, then that is said to be JSP elements. Okay, so what are these JSP elements? These JSP elements are described in various ways, and these JSP elements are used to describe the code of that particular JSP page. So the JSP elements, these are all various elements like scriptlet, JSP declarations, expressions, JSP directives, action tags, and custom tags. See, when you say it's a scriptlet is some code which is written in particularly in Java language. Earlier, before Java or earlier to that, there are many cases like wherein the scriptlet is even written in JavaScript. But now the code which is written in JavaScript is coming under a template text. So now we are writing the scriptlet code, which is a very important code in terms of Java language by using Java language. If you see JSP declarations are used to declare the variables in JSP page. Variables. It's not only variables. Besides declaring the variable, you can directly give the value. That is one type of declaration. You can directly declare the methods as well. You can declare the class and create objects for that. That is one sort of an element called as JSP declaration. Coming to JSP expressions you can understand, which is nothing but which uses operands and operators in order to evaluate something. Okay, so even in JSP language, you will be using expressions to find out some resultant value. Of course, it will have its own syntax. Clear? Next, coming to JSP directives. These directives are used to process the JSP page. Like, it gives the directions how a particular JSP page must be processed. Depending upon those directives, the entire JSP page will get validated. Is that clear? Next, it is JSP action tags and custom tags. If you can look at action tags, these are said to be the predefined tags given by JSP page. Okay, which are available in JSP. Action tags are the predefined tags. Whereas if you come to JSP custom tags, these are the tags which are created by the user where and whenever required. Okay, now these are all various elements. These elements, each of it has its own syntax. Now we should see the syntax of each of these as well. These all also contains various things in it. various things in it, we should even consider those things. So among the components of a JSP page, you have template text as well as JSP elements. Is that clear? Now coming to our, let's discuss about the scriptlet, which is nothing but a Java code. See, when you say a scriptlet, the syntax of scriptlet is something like this. That is, open the angular bracket, percentile symbol, write the code fragment, close the percentile symbol, and then close the angular bracket. This is the best syntax for a scriptlet. So whenever you see something enclosed in between these two things, then we say that as a scriptlet. Okay, so what are these scriptlets is? This is nothing but, as we told earlier, this code fragment is written in Java code, and JSP container moves all these statements enclosed, all the statements of Java code enclosed within angular brackets, enclosed within these angular brackets. Okay, so what happens is, whenever the JSP page is containing such a code, the code, this particular code or the code within this angular brackets is sent to the underscore JSP service method. Where did we find this? We found this in JSP lifecycle. Besides init and finish destroy methods, besides these two, you have one method called as underscore JSP service method. This method is used to, or is having the main context, the main code which is represented by a particular JSP page. So as soon as a servlet is generated, immediately it calls underscore JSP service method. The code within this JSP service method is the actual method. Okay, so the code whichever is written here inside the scriptlet is handled by underscore JSP service method, which is generated by an automatically generated servlet from JSP. Okay, that is what happens inside, or that is what happens with scriptlet. So how to identify such scriptlet? That is, which is enclosed in between these angular brackets, closed and opened angular brackets. The other way of writing your scriptlet code is the other syntax is this thing. Angular bracket JSP colon scriptlet. You will be specifying this thing. These are all keywords. You can't miss any of these things. Angular bracket JSP colon scriptlet, and then tags, write it as tags, and then close the tag JSP scriptlet. By looking at this JSP scriptlet, scriptlet, we say that the code inside this is entirely a scriptlet code which is related to the JSP page, and this code is obviously written in Java language, and this code is handled by underscore JSP service method, which is generated by the automatically generated servlet. Okay, but this is the easiest one and this is the best one to use while writing a scriptlet code. Is that clear? If at all, if you forget this, then we should go for this, writing it in terms of a scriptlet. This is what is scriptlet. This is one of the JSP element. Now, let's see a small example for this. See, if you can look here, you have written something using HTML head, title, head, body, and within the body you wrote something hello world. Okay, so if you can look, and after that you have something called as angular bracket, percentile symbol, and out.println statement, and then close the angular bracket. So what is this? When you say this, you say this is a scriptlet. And if you can clearly understand this part of code which is written in some other language, which is nothing but HTML here, this part of text is said to be a template text. Okay, within the template text you have written something called as hello world. Now after this you started writing a scriptlet. So when this happened, after that you close your body and then HTML. So when this particular thing is happened and you are writing out.println method here, this out.println is used to give the output onto the screen. We know that. And what is that you are saying? You are trying to generate some IP address by using get remote address method. Okay, so the thing is, under the template text you have written something, and after that you have started writing your scriptlet code. So when the JSP page looks at this scriptlet code, only then the JSP engine, this only then this particular code will be sent to the underscore JSP service method. Other than that, anything else is not being sent to the underscore JSP service method. This is normally executed. Hello world is normally executed outside the JSP page, outside the servlet page, and it is immediately shown on the client. Okay, coming to this is sent to the underscore JSP method, and then that method will give the response to the client. This is what happens according to this particular example. Is this clear? So just to understand scriptlet, we have written this, and this is obviously written in Java language. Okay, this is one of the JSP elements, that is scriptlet. Next, it is JSP declarations. As the name itself defines that this is used to declare JSP variables. It's not only variables but also methods, but also classes and their objects. So this is the syntax here. The syntax for declaration of JSP tags is something like this. Open the angular bracket, percentile symbol, exclamatory mark, and then declare and then close it. So when you are declaring, this is an example, int I is equal to 0. Here I is a variable and int is data type, and 0 is the value of the variable, which is enclosed in between angular brackets and then exclamatory mark. Is this clear? So what happens here is, JSP container, what it does is, those things which are all above or which are not inside the scriptlet are all outside the service method. So they are not handled by underscore JSP service method at all. See, if you can observe here, if you just remove this exclamatory mark here, then it will become a scriptlet. Okay, just by defining the exclamatory mark, we have moved from, or we have changed from scriptlet to declaration. That you should understand. So as soon as this exclamatory mark is seen by the JSP container or JSP servlet engine, that will understand that it is a declaration, and this is made to stay away from the underscore JSP service method. As a result, the servlet, the automatically generated servlet, is not going to process this particular statement. This is just kept outside, and this is processed by the JSP container itself. Okay, this is what is JSP declaration, and these are various ways. Yes, this is one way of declaring the variable, that is by assigning its value. The other way is to just declare the variables. Here if you can see, you have used a method, an object, you have used a class name and an object. So it is also used to create a class, that is JSP declarations. Yes, besides the JSP declarations, this is the way how you will be declaring the variables. Besides this is done by the user. Always this is done by the user. But when you come to certain variables, nothing but certain objects which are not created by the user, but they can directly be used inside the JSP page, such things are said to be JSP implicit objects. Those objects, JSP implicit objects, are those objects which are not declared by the user, but which are already predefined by the system itself. As a result, those such objects are said to be JSP implicit objects. Okay, in your previous example, A is an object here. Fine, that is JSP declared object, which is declared by the user. Coming to certain other objects like request, response, outstation, application, config page, context page, and exception, all these are implicit objects which are predefined by the system. The user need not define all these objects. This is said to be, these are said to be JSP implicit objects. So coming to this, this type of declaration, okay, if as this is not taken care by, or as this is not processed by underscore JSP service method, see, variables can be initialized using scriptlet also, but that declaration being placed inside underscore JSP service method, which doesn't make them class-wide declarations. That means they can't be global declarations. They have to be local to that particular scriptlet itself. As these are kept outside the scriptlet, outside the service method, they can be made as global. Now coming to the implicit objects, those objects which are directly declared by the system, that is request. See, when you have request object, this is the object which is associated with the request. One of its kind is HTTP servlet request, which we have seen in many cases in many other things. So HTTP servlet request. Response is also an object, HTTP servlet response, which is associated in response to the client. Out is used in order to give out or print out the statement, give out the output statements. Session is used along with the HTTP session object with associated with the request, as long as the user is using that particular cookie or that particular page, then you will be, till then you will be having a session associated. Application, this is a servlet context object associated with the application context. Config, this is nothing but the servlet config object. This is already associated with the page. If you see page context, this is used for encapsulation used on the server specific features like JSP writers. This page, this is almost similar to this keyword in your object oriented programming, that is Java. Okay, page, because we are dealing with JSP pages always. There we used to call a variable using this dot. That means the object, the same object, whichever is in which you are doing. Similarly, here it is the same page, so it is similar to this this keyword in Java. Coming to exception, this is similar to your exception object, which allows the exception data to be accessed by the JSP page. That is what is JSP declarations. The next it is JSP expressions. So what happens with these expressions is, this is used to evaluate something and give out the result to the user. So the syntax of JSP expression is something like this, that is, which is similar to scriptlet. Inside that, in place of code fragment, you must write it as equal to expression. This equal to symbol is must. Okay, equal to expression. So when you say equal to, see, this is a small program, equal to 2 plus 4 into 5. When I say this is going to give the output as using the response object. This is going to give the output using the response object to the client. 2 plus 4 into 5. 4 5 is 20 plus 2 22. 22 is the output screen, output value. Okay, this is the output screen which you get when you execute this type of statement. Okay, next it is JSP directives. These are the major or very important element for the JSP page. JSP directives, these are used to process the entire page, and these are used to give the directions for the page how to get it processed. Okay, like how a particular JSP page must be processed. So as such, when you consider directives, JSP directives, basically there are 3 types of directives in JSP, like page directive, include directive, and taglib directive. So when you say page directive, why is it used? When you say directive, that is going to give you the direction, yes or no, direction how to access a particular page. Now a particular program, JSP program, Now, when I say page directive, this is going to give you the complete information about the page, about that particular JSP page. That is what is page directive. Okay, next it is include directive. This include directive is used to combine one JSP content into another, like one used to copy from one JSP content into another. So by using include directive, what you can do is you can determine from which file the data has to be copied, because you'll be already staying in some JSP page. Okay, so there you will be giving out code related to include directive, which determines from where the data has to be stored. Next it is taglit directive. This is used to create our own custom tags. Taglit directive is used to create our own custom tags. Now coming to page directive, we have to see each of these directives in detail. So when you come to that, when you see a page directive, you have 11 attributes which are to be discussed in page directive. So what actually page directive does? That is used to give a complete information about the page, ASP page, yes or no? So first of all, the first directive is import. That means from where you have to import certain elements into our JSP page. For that, see, if you look at the directive syntax, it is something like this: at the rate, this is obvious, angular bracket, percentage, at the rate, directive name, whichever directive you are using. So let us suppose you are using import. So you start with import. Directive name, attribute name is equal to value, so on, a number of attributes. So similarly, so here within a page directive, you are using page directive. Directive name is page. So page directive. What is the next thing? It is attribute name. What is the attribute name? That is import. This is the attribute, right? Within the page directive, you have various attributes. So this is the attribute import, and this is an attribute and its values. So what are all the things that you wanted to import? See, you are saying that your JSP code is in terms of Java language. So let me suppose that I am importing some java.sql.star. So I'll be using that here. In that way, I can import any number of directories. Okay, any number of files. So I have to use attribute is equal to value 1, value 2, like any number of directories which can be imported into our system, into our program. That is what it means. So as it is a page directive, you should start with at the rate. Till at the rate, it is a syntax. As it is a page directive, you should write the name of the directive and then its attribute and then their values. This is what is a syntax looks like. Let's go to the next thing, that is session. Session, this is also under page directive. Yes, so angular bracket open, percentile, at the rate is syntax, followed by page. Page is name of the directive, and then attribute. What is attribute? Session is the attribute and its value. So this value takes either true or false values. That means Boolean values. So it can take either true or false. So when you say that it is true, that means this session will maintain session interface of a particular user. How long the user is using that particular page is maintained by this session object. Yes, session attribute. So when you say true, it means that it is able to give you how long it is using the session value. Okay, if you say it is false, if the value is mentioned as false, that means it is unable to give. That is what it means. Okay, so this session attribute is taking values either true or false. Is that clear? By default, the value will be true always. By default, the value will be true always. That is the reason when you close your session and again open it, it is asking you, it will ask you like, shall we save this password or not? Something like that. Yes, or no. So that is the thing. So this is what happens with the session attribute. Coming to is error page. is error page. This is very important. You should understand it very carefully. Till here, it is the directive name. Is error page is an attribute and its value. Either this value also takes, is error page value also takes either true or false. That means it is also taking the Boolean values. Fine. What it determines? Is error page determines whether this particular page can handle the exceptions or not. Okay, and whether this particular page can handle exceptions in some other JSP page or not. That is very much important here. That means when you use is error page, this will be associated with some other JSP page, wherein in that page, this particular page must be able to handle the exceptions, handle the errors, handle the exceptions. So when I say this is true, when I say this is true, that means that in some other page, this particular page is able to handle the exception, is able to handle the exception. Let us suppose my page name is my file. Let us suppose something like that. myfile.jsp. In that myfile.jsp, I have written some code regarding exception handling. Okay, so when I write this for that myfile.jsp, within that myfile.jsp, if I write an attribute as is error page is equal to true, then that means this entire code can be used as exception handler in some other page. Is that clear? Okay, where that will be used, how that will be used is explained in the next attribute, that is error page. So what happens here? You say error page. Here, see, in is error page, it is taking true or false values. Whereas in error page, it will not take true or false values, no Boolean values, but it will take the URL of the file, whichever is set as true in is error page. That means whichever page is, it will take the URL of the page, whichever page is able to handle the exceptions. That page URL is taken as a value for this attribute. See, earlier in myfile.jsp, in that particular file, I wrote a code regarding exception handling and I made it as true, is error page as true. So when I did that, I say that this particular page, myfile.jsp, can handle exceptions in some other page also, wherever it is required. That means there I should mention the name of this page. So where will I mention that? I will be mentioning in some other page by using error page attribute, and whose value is the name of my JSP file, which had information, which had code regarding exception handling. Is that clear? So if I'll write here as error page is equal to myfile.jsp. Error page is equal to myfile.jsp. When I say this, here if this is set to true, then this will be able to handle the exception. Suppose here it is set to false, and if I write this page, here you are not going to handle any exceptions. So though both of this is error page and error page are both associated to each other, Okay, next attribute. Hope you understood the major difference as well as association in between these is error page and error page. Next it is content type. When you say content type is text or HTML, like whether it is a template text or JSP file, whatever it is, you'll be writing it as a content file. Next it is thread safe. Is thread safe and its value is true or false, is taking the Boolean value. Is thread safe. When will you use this? When there is multi-threading concept. That means you'll have n number of threads there. Okay, so using this n number of threads, which of those is safe, which thread is safe, like T1, you will have, when you say it as multi-threaded, you will have T1, T2, so on. Now I'll be asking, is thread safe of true? That means for that particular page, for that particular thread, whether it is safe or not. Okay, next extends. This is used for inheritance concept, which is used to inherit various other classes in our JSP page. Next, info attribute. whose value is this is similar to get servlet info, used to get the information about the servlet there. Here next language, which language you are using within the scriptlet, whether it is Java or some other. Basically nowadays we are using just Java language. Next, autoflush attribute whose value is true or false. That means if the buffer is full, when I say it is true, when I assign this value as true, it means that whenever the buffer is full, immediately it should be flushed. Automatically it should be flushed. Flushed in the sense it must be made free, completely free, completely vacant for the other data to get stored. If I say it is false, it will not make it as free. Okay, so that the buffer is always filled up and it can't accommodate the other data coming next. Next, it is buffer. This is used to specify the size of the buffer. If you say, if you give some size, it will assign to that particular size. If I say none, that means no buffer over there. These are all various attributes available in page directive. Okay, under directives, under JSP directives, we have seen about the page directive. Next directive, it is include directive. This include directive is used for including the data of content of one JSP into the other, nothing but copy. So here it will determine from where I should include the data. Here I am saying that I should include from my JSP.jsp page. This is the name of my file, let us suppose. I'm asking to include from here, the data from here. Next it is tag lib directory. Tag lib directory is basically used to create custom tags. Okay, when you are creating custom tags, see, you will be providing the prefix for a custom tag. You will be providing the URL and a prefix for the custom tag, and this is how you will be generating it or specifying it. This is simply a custom tag, that means user defined tag. Okay, this is what is tag lib directory. Is that clear? Next, we have seen till JSP directives. The remaining will be held in the next session. Hope everyone understood till here. Everyone is very clear till here. We have seen about what are various elements, what are various components, template text JSP elements. We have seen about various elements like scriptlets, JSP declarations, what are JSP expressions, JSP directives, and various forms of JSP directives alone. Hope everything is clear. Thank you everyone. Thank you.